African Ascent International, usually privileged to draw from the phenomenal musical resources of Berklee College of Music, the leading college for the study of contemporary music, is honored to bring Patricia Perez and Danilo Perez, who are not only phenomenal musicians, dynamically and globally acclaimed for their crafts, but also wonderful human beings. And I mean that from as the center of my being, whom I am honored to claim as some of my exceptional friends in this vast world. As everybody knows, African Ascent International is generously supported by the Hutchins Center for the Study of African and American Studies at Harvard University, and of course, my own lovely university, the Berklee College of Music. To today's episode, which I conveniently call Part 1, because it will naturally lead to Part 2, which will cover performances by these great musicians, will be a dialogue, a conversation with an advanced student, namely me, who is eager to learn everything that there is to learn about music, and most particularly about the jazz genre, for which the extraordinary and dynamic pianist Danilo Pérez is one of the leading authorities on that craft, without any exaggeration. And of course, the great, brilliant, and lovely Patricia Perez, who was the first Chilean to graduate as a saxophonist from Berklee College of Music. To introduce these two extraordinary musicians would literally take about half of the program, which I'm not willing to do. Other than stressing again, Danilo Pérez is simply one of the most dynamic and leading composers and pianists rocking the jazz world. As I speak to you. And Patricia Perez, known for being a gifted saxophonist, from what I read, and also a great teacher in the classroom, a great humanist, really, who respects and interacts with her students with an enviable level of respect. She is also a therapist, a music therapist, who graduated from Berklee College of Music, as did her partner, her husband, Danilo Pérez, who graduated, I think, in 1982. I may not have the accurate date. And Patricia Perez graduated in 1999. I could say considerably more, but I need not do so because these two great musicians are so well known that I'm not going to waste time on my readers to introduce them. But for those of you who'd like to dig deeper and know more about them, I invite you to simply Google their names at your risk, because the lists are bound to be very, very long. Among other things, which we'll talk about, and they are in Panama as we speak now, heading towards Berklee on Thursday, I think, although this year they did not physically attend the world-known Panama Jazz Festival. They attended it, and Ms. Patricia Perez was telling me how great it was about 5-10 minutes ago. So as a lead-in question, if they don't mind, what I would like to ask them is to introduce themselves further, and most particularly share with the world how they met as a husband and wife, as musicians who went to the same school and have been to their home, as exceptional parents who are also raising musical stars for the future. Welcome to African Ascent International. All right. So let's begin talking about the two of you. I think
Well, we have, yes, we met at Wally's Jazz Club during the Latin night in January of 1996 when I first came to Berkeley. Danilo had graduated and he was actually having a very busy schedule. he was touring a lot at that time. But it happened that one night he was here in Boston, and he went to Wally's to a very famous Latin night. Thursday night is usually Latin night, Latin jazz night at Wally's. I don't know if they still have it, but this is a tradition at Wally's. So we met there. I was actually dancing, and Danilo was also dancing. I asked him to dance with me, and we danced all night and for the rest of our lives.
So you've been dancing for the rest of your lives, Patricia. How about you, Danilo? What is your recollection of that lovely night?
Can I say the whole thing, Patricia? When I got in, just this spectacle was I still shocked about it. So I go in, nobody's dancing, she's dancing alone. She's doing a show, basically, for everybody in the club. And the band sounded good, they were friends of mine. And, our eyes lock into each other immediately and say hi, and there was a smile. You see the way we smile to each other, and that was introduction. We haven't talked to each other, we just smile and look at each other, and the energy set up what was coming next. We started dancing. She was dancing. She had a very good rhythm. At that point, she was starting to practice the salsa dancing. So, and then, in one of those little breaks, I went to the piano and played very little because I used to jam. And she goes, "Oh, you sound really good. I'm actually planning to put a group together. Would you want to play in my band?" And I said, 2 years, she said. "In 2 years, I'm planning to put my group together." And I said, "Yeah." She said, "Okay, can you give me your telephone number?" So the next day after that, she called me. And I took the phone, and I always remember thinking, "Oh my God, she want to start rehearsing that soon." That's how we met.
Oh, what it's so beautiful. I'm so tempted to even write about this. I love the beginning. I like the romance and the respect that you exhibited towards one another, which is becoming increasingly rare in our fast-paced time. People do not know how to fall in love anymore, if you have noticed, because they are so afraid. And if they do fall in love, they fall in love for the wrong reasons. Then, as a professor in the classrooms, I'm so used now to counseling broken hearts, precisely because of the awkwardness of the beginning. And lately at Berklee, I've been counseling quite a few of my students whom I love dearly, particularly those who have the courage to tell me that they have been dumped or they have dumped someone. I've been advising them to think of falling in love as a decision that you make when you fall in love, because it may not simply be about chemistry. It is really an invitation to work. I think it has to be worked on when the rocks are heavy, when they fall on you. If you want to stay in love, you have to stay in love. You have to embrace the pain, the suffering, and make a commitment to make this particular relationship to work. This is the kind of counseling that I have been giving. Am I right about that, Patricia, or do I not know what I'm talking about?
I think you're totally right. Love and relationship is a full-time job. I mean, you have to work a job in a good sense, that you have to work on it. You have to feed the love. You have to take care of it. You have to, it goes up and down. It's fluid. I mean, it's not, one line that goes throughout your life. With Danilo, we've been together for 26 years. So we've been together more. I've been, more with Danilo than without Danilo in this life. And I've been blessed. You have to recognize the blessing too. And we have three wonderful children, which are also the extension of our relationship and the extension of that care and loving, interlude between these two very difficult and different beings, but that love and respect and love some of the same things. Music is one of the things we love and we share, and many other things. Salsa dancing, of course, that's how we met. Salsa dancing is our therapy. And this love for learning too. I think we're both very happy to be in Boston, in a place where we can learn, where we can study all the time, where we can have access to people like you, Professor Kiros, and who are all the time, bringing new ideas, and we have infinite amount of information that we can access when we live in a place like Boston. So in that way, we enjoy. We're very different. We are different beings, but we enjoy many things that are the same. And at the end of the day, I think that has a lot to do with love too.
Beautiful. How about you, Danilo? Would you like to add a thought or two, or even?
Yes, I'm going from another angle.
Please.
My experience taught me in a very profound way in terms of what I was looking for as an artist and growing as a human being too. I encountered one of the most amazing characters in my life. His name is Wayne Shorter. And Wayne Shorter not only is a genius, but he also happens to be a brilliant philosopher too. I can't wait for you both to be together once. And I want to be present there in that conversation, because it's going to be amazing. What he taught me was that when you are trying to get closer to music, you have to go to the living, the art of living, and that will bring you closer to music. And what he says to me was, going back a little bit, I said to him, at the beginning of our relationship, I said, how do I sound? What do I need to work on it in my music? And he said, you need to get married. And I went, what? I thought that he was being extremely creative about finding a way to tell me that he didn't like the way I play. So because he comes from the Miles Davis school, I thought he was saying, I don't really like the way you play. You're going to get fired. That's a creative thought that I have. You need to get married. That's what I was thinking.
I see.
But what he actually was thinking was, and he told me 5 years later to his wife, is that he was concerned about me, because he said that Danilo was really hungry to learn more music, and he didn't feel I needed more music in my life. I needed more life story, because that is what you're going to be playing. And I needed to connect with my own conscious in terms of commitment, discipline. There was a lot of value that he wanted me to learn and bring it on to the music. I got to tell you, I'm grateful that I listened to his advice, because I don't feel that I could have done it any better than the way I did. Marrying Patricia has shown me to live with my strength and my weakness, and learn that they're all temporaries in life, and that we keep growing and we're learning that every day in our life is a rehearsal or an opportunity to become. And you can only experience that when you're willing to take this into the unknown. And the unknown is sharing your heart, sharing your being with somebody, putting it to practice everything you believe that music brings to the table, connect us and humanize us. Here it is. The greatest lesson for me has been being able to share that space with Patricia, where I feel sometimes she's getting way in it, and I don't like it. I feel uncomfortable. But then I learned to live with, and I learned that life is about moving on, learning, You can't take anything you're working on. You can only leave things in this life. And you know, I want to take with me that memory of that. I was in love, and I gave myself, and I did the best, and every day was a rehearsal, and I try to do better today than yesterday.
At the expense of sharing something very private, please allow me. First of all, I was truly honored to be invited to your lovely home, a very artistic home, in the company of highly accomplished guests, except me, of course. What was spectacular about that evening was the harmony at the dinner. There was Danilo, infinitely generous. There was Patricia, the accomplished musician who cooked the entire day to pay tribute to probably one of the greatest provosts ever, who must have seen living hell to carry that mantle of intelligence, judiciousness, attentiveness, suppressing identity politics to do his work well for 17 years. And then both Danilo and Patricia, who must have invested quite a bit on that party. And of course, Terry Carrington, an extraordinary musician, Tanya, and the few others who were there. And then your children at the end of the night, who played music for us. What stands out in my mind is the marriage, the seamless relationship. And then, as Patricia put it, wonderful children, whom I sense already love music because they have seen music being practiced lovingly in their home. And of course, very beautiful as human beings. And then what was impressive is that most musicians at your level would not even think in terms of paying tribute to a retiring provost now that you've made it, now that you're becoming famous. And yet Danilo and Patricia hosted that party to express your gratitude to Larry Simpson, whom I'm already missing. I want to share that night with the world, with your permission. How did you put all that together? I know the function of harmony in music, but I did not ever witness a harmony at a party which reflects the internal harmony of the hosts themselves and the family setting. This is going to be a different kind of interview. I've worked hard at this to make this an interview of the century about two great musicians. I did not invite you here to discuss jazz standards and playing the saxophone and composing and so on. Not that these are not important. Yes, they are important. You've already done this. What I want us to discuss is you, the musicians, as human beings. Let us reflect on the meaning of that party.
Well, that is actually a great point. One of the things that you mentioned is that, why would we throw out a party for Larry? And one of the things that we, well, first of all, we do care about Larry as a person, but apart from caring about him, we find that over these years he has become a friend of ours, a dear friend of ours. Somebody who has not only, a good friend, but somebody who has changed our lives, because he was very important in giving us the space to develop our, our educational component, all the experiments that we've been doing in Panama for many years. I mean, I would even dare to say the experiments we did in Danilo's father did in Panama in the 1960s, that Danilo expanded into, the rest of Panama and then the rest of the world. And that I've been studying, of course, and I've been documenting in a book, and I've been, taking, of course, all of this and transfer it to other disciplines like music therapy, for example. All of these, it was really Larry who saw the future, who was a visionary, and saw the vision that we had for jazz education. And he said, you guys, and sorry that it was Larry with Roger Brown who also allowed this to happen, and saw also Larry and Roger saw this vision that we had, and gave us the space to develop it at Berklee Global Jazz Institute. So in that sense, that's, Larry changed our lives, and he has been with us all this time, as not only as a friend, but as a close advisor on bringing together this, I would say, Panamanian experience, more than Panamanian, Latin American experience, the connection of Latin American and jazz, and bringing it to the American perspective, but in a globalized world, in a hyper-globalized environment. We have students from all over the world at Berklee. We, especially at the Berklee Global Jazz Institute, and usually have students from the 5 different continents all the time, every year. And again, Larry became, our kind of biggest advisor when we, when things clash, when the histories of, our Latin America and the American history clashed, when, the history of all of these very different students clashed, he was always our best advisor, and, we would go to him and say, how do we deal with this? So in advising us, he also was teaching us, and we learned so much from him. So we owe him not only, a work position, but we owe him a whole 17 years of growth, of cultural growth, of educational growth. Danilo has been always a wonderful teacher, and in the sense that we know how to teach music, but this is more than music. We're teaching more than music. We're there, the Global Jazz Institute is there to change the paradigm of jazz education. And for that, we needed somebody like Roger Brown and like Larry Simpson, who was going to, provide the stability for us to work in an environment where, when you want to change things become difficult. You have to, you have to work within a system that has worked for some people for a long time. So in that sense, again, we grew a lot. So we owe him more than just a friendship or just, a position, a working position.
On site, Larry is a super special person in our life for opening this space, as Patricia said, for growth, development. Find people that have same ideas, same thoughts, people who believe that through what they do can reimagine a new world, which is where we are right now. To have all of you there that night, it for me flashes on or spark on the meaning of the word gratitude, because I think gratitude is the door to greatness, to seeing the beauty in the world. It's a powerful catalyst for joy, gratitude. And I get high from that feeling. I have been connected since I was a kid through my father, through my grandfather, through my mother, working on it. You know, we came to music with two components that I remember is strong. The power of music to connect us as human beings and to humanize us. So every opportunity I have that we get in a room with people like that and people that are really is going to bring stuff to the table, that is going to activate and spark some new thoughts and challenge you. I really feel like it's a rebirth. My spirit feels alive again. And you know, when I am doing music, when I am doing conversations and times like we had, for me, it's not separated. It's the experience, it's the human experience at the ultimate level. And that energy, I bring it to the music. The idea that there are humans that we can believe, we can trust, that they are hopeful, that they believe that we can change the world, that people that have vision, that you can share with it. And that is so activating. For me, I always think of the word gratitude. The word activates and is a powerful catalyst for joy. It brings joy to my life. So that's where I'm coming from. And when I will never forget that day. It will always give me a soundtrack, a theme to create a soundtrack in my life because of that experience. You know, I'll be playing and I'll be like, wow, I remember this time. And something magical is going to happen.
Amazing. Now, when I invited Terry Carrington, whom, thanks to the two of you, I met for the first time. And then I ventured to invite her to be part of African Ascent International. And considering how luminously busy she is, I appreciated her humility to agree to come to the program and participate most generously. I remember asking her a question that went like this. I never write down questions. I am a jazz artist, I think. The questions that I ask are generated by the nature of the conversation. I don't rehearse them. I don't even think of them. I don't send questions to my guests. I was surprised when Patricia asked me for questions and I did something that I've never done before. I sent her a list of items, themes, and topics that we can discuss from which the questions might emerge. I remember asking her what she thought of this strange question that I have heard interviewers asking musicians. Namely, what is the role of music in life? And of course, in one of the interviews that she gave, she famously said, it is not merely a question of music playing this role or that role. Rather, it is in fact the case that what we call life under ideal conditions, as Danilo was hinting, is music. I would like us to dig deeper into that proposition. Is life under ideal conditions really music? If that was the case, why do we have wars? Why are we massacring 5, 10-year-old children in Ukraine right now? Where is music? We should celebrate life and not torture it and kill it. I would like us to think about that. I know both of you are thinkers.
That's a very difficult question. That's a very difficult question, but but I have an opinion about that, and is that as a music therapist, you are trained to use the qualities of music, the elements of music, to make good, to change something that is, to change disorder into order. So, for example, to change that something that is, or may seem that is not alive to something that is alive, or to change something that is too alive and chaotic into something with, with a continuum, depending on what we need. And in that sense, what you said about the response of Terry, yeah, it makes sense that, we talk about music, as if music was something separate from life, when in fact it's not. It's totally life. It is life. It's just that, we have come to the point that we see music as a product so much that we have completely forgotten about the other functions of music, including the therapeutic functions of music, that function of music to change a person, to change a collective, to change humanity, to change the world. We have forgotten that because we are only focused on how much money we can make in our records, So we have commodified music to the point that we have forgotten the most important elements of music that have always been well known. We know that music have made change, but we have to we have to practice making good change with music, because we can also use music to make things worse, as you said it. Why is music not working to make things better? Well, because we have forgotten how to use the good, how to use music for the good. We have forgotten, but we have not forgotten to use music as a weapon for war. So we have had sonic attacks developing. We have had music as a weapon, for psychological warfare. So we have learned how to use music for, bad, for psychological warfare, but we have not learned enough how to make music for the betterment of humanity. And that's why it's so important, to me at least, to have music and social activism at every school. Every music school should have a class on music and social activism. That is why it's so important for me that every musician and every person in the world should know a little bit about music therapy, and should know how, to use music to communicate with people that maybe have issues communicating, how to revive and bring back the memories of people that have dementia, for example, or Alzheimer's disease, that can connect, but they cannot connect, and they don't know where they are until they hear music, and they can. And they come back, and they can talk to the person, and they can, recognize who they are there, not only who they are, but who are the people around them who love them. So music can do all of that. Music can give, can change the world in so many ways, individually and collectively. And we are not, this is not the basis of our educational system. We're not learning the most important things that we need to learn to survive. And many of them come from, music therapy, the music therapy profession, social activism, how to use music for the betterment of humanity. And this is one of the reasons why, we're not there. Well, actually, we are there. We have a music therapy group right now that is working with victims of the Ukraine and Russia war. Right now, people are working with music, and that social issue we're having right now, that war happening. So, but it's too small. We need more people. We need it in the educational system. This is the change in paradigm that we're talking about. at the Global Jazz Institute every day. This is what we need to do.
I think we're still ruled by two viruses, greed and power. And there is a lot of effort in the social structure we live on to develop our ignorance that has created a specific inertia in the way we think about things. We still resounding to behaviors as old as we can imagine in terms of how we solve this issue, because we don't know how to deal with resistance. It's a force that is opposite to that idea of inertia that people have developed. We have spent too much time developing selfishness. That helps to create more inertia, more sedation. We could also be sedated out of education. This can be a component of peak sedation in the education that we have had. So I like to think of the idea of resistance, like how do we come from this resistance and rebirth out of the resistance. You know, maybe the problem is that we call this art form music. Maybe if we listen to and connect it to our genes and our spirituality more deeper, we'll hear the sounds of our life and will connect us deeper. You know, I think, I believe that music is a potential medicine that can create, or potential chemical that could create a perfect antidote for peace. But as Patricia said, we gotta also think about the repertoire. I think the sounds that we are hearing are all sounds. We haven't changed the songs. They're still composing. It's all that chaotic. You know, I really feel at the core, if we could let music do the healing, it will be done. We have to accept that part. Maybe the name of music is what is blocking. Maybe that is an experience that we have to refine and find a new terminology. I don't know what it is, but I believe in the human capacity to awaken the soul, to enlighten, and to be moved and said, enough is enough. We cannot be playing the same cliches. We cannot play the same licks. Maybe we have to go all the way to the bottom to see the light.
Well, now we're going to move very quickly because we're running out of time. I feel as if I've been talking to you for 5 minutes only. How little do I realize that we've been going close to 40 minutes. So I want to go now to the technical dimension of your crafts. And I want to think of two features of music. In your case, composition. Because Danilo is not only a gifted pianist, but also an extraordinary composer. And Patricia is not only a Chilean saxophonist, but a great saxophonist. There is a difference. Now, why is it that, Danilo, we don't talk about the contributions of composers who happen to be non-European to the same degree as we do about composers who are European, as if composition could be dissolved into a European musical practice only, as if It is something in the form of a DNA that is present only in a European/American composer. I would like you to pierce that zone and educate me.
That's wow. That's going to be a beginning of an open chapter for new conversations, Professor. But one of the things I've been thinking about is, first of all, there is a need and a space to do a united presentation of the Afro-American diaspora. Have to be united. The history has to be told united, all the way from Brazil to the last part in United States. And we have to create new knowledge, new courses to connect the history and the importance of all these composers and a lot of the exchange. A lot of the, we have to break it down in a way that needs to be a part of the educational system. I believe that we have to Pan-Africanize the curriculum. A lot of the misconceptions is coming from, it's the education that we have been exposed to. A lot of the interviews, for example, for the new master program, I am asking, do you think that you could have a complete view of a jazz program without the acknowledgement of body movement, of the drums, of the West Africa, of the slave trade? Do you think that not knowing about that will give you a complete experience of what this art form called jazz is about? I'm asking that question. Because sometimes we are teaching and we are learning this music without this social and cultural context. And when you start deepening yourself into, you find connections all the way to the presentation you gave about the music, about the philosophy, you're gonna see a deep connection. This is not just random education that happens on the street. I call it the university of the street. We have to be more formal about it. It's a university that was created. You know, I come from the school of teachers that didn't go through the traditional system, but they were brilliant. One of them is Dizzy Gillespie. And Dizzy Gillespie taught me a lot of things. For example, he taught me the idea about curiosity in jazz. It's not about finding the right or wrong. No, it's about being curious. Where are you living now? What are you doing here? Where are you going? What's happening? He taught us all of those questions. He taught us about the relationship of language and music. He taught us about the relationship of music and diplomacy. You know, Wayne Shorter taught us about how do we celebrate life? We have it with us. It's music. Music is the ultimate gift that you don't see, but that you can make it visible somehow if you put your heart into. You know, it's the art of living, I call it. Music gives you that experience, that it's almost like a high, like an ability to see life through another lenses. And Wayne Shorter taught me that, you know, don't fear the unknown. I asked him once, when you said that you never rehearsed, I asked him about our first gig. I said, Maestro, what is the set? What music we're gonna play? And he said to me, Danilo, we can't rehearse the unknown. The unknown cannot be rehearsed. So, you know, we are in the challenge now. How do we create a program that brings out this awareness and awaken this curiosity and the vocation and the artistry for the students? I think that will all help to create a connection with a lot of these composers, to give the right credit where it deserves. In these terms right now, we are seeing names of a lot of great women composers, that has been under the table. Nobody really exposed them. So there's a lot of conversations on the table. I really believe the time is now to change, but we must think about Pan-Africanization of the curriculum in order to move forward.
Patricia, how about in your case, music therapy, but also saxophone? I have listened to your ability as a saxophonist. You are extraordinary, and you're setting a new standard for the future. So that my brilliant female students at Berklee do not have to be tirelessly asked, what do you do? Are you a vocalist? Not that vocality is not an instrument of music, although that is denigrating it. I prefer a more poetic term, that it's not the ultimate home of musicality. But in addition, some of these females are also instrumentalists of a first order, composers, saxophonists, drummers, all these instrumentalities that once again have been masculinized for centuries. And here you and Esperanza and Terry Carrington are setting a new stage, which will lead me to the second question, namely the construction of standards, so-called jazz standards, that assumes that standards have been set already, when it may be the case, as Danilo was contending, standards themselves have to be reconfigured, rethought with the presence, the new presence of the subjugated, the marginalized, and so on.
Wow, Professor. I think you're feeding the non-apologetic Patricia with your questions. And I think in that sense, well, patriarchy is, it is part of the system. We are not only patriarchy, but colonization. We are obsessively educated to view the world in relation to European countries, to classical music, to the development of a pretty small part of the world. And that Eurocentric view of the world have been imposed to us. Is the product of European colonization, the genocide of indigenous people, the enslavement of African people. And in order to move forward, in order to change this, we need to be able to acknowledge that history so we can move on, so we can be fully educated, so we can have women and Latinos and composers and everybody in the space. We have a big world, especially now with the internet. We have expanded our world, so we have the space now for everyone. We need to be able to include oral traditions. Oral traditions are in extinction right now. We need to be able to document, to also follow that path, to follow the path of oral tradition, other metric systems, other scales, other ways to understand harmony, other than the harmonic considerations, coming from the European tradition. We need more African-American music. We need more women's studies in the schools and outside of the schools, doing the communities. We need the understanding of what Danilo was saying, this Pan-Afro-American perspective. I mean, give me a break. People didn't come here and just stayed in Panama for the rest of their life and didn't have, access to nobody. Some people did, but it wasn't it wasn't the case of the Pan-African American movements that happened here. And with that, music, and with that jazz, and with that, the composers. And so we are putting a lot of effort to erase the history of women, thanks to patriarchy, erase the history of the people from the Caribbean, erase the contributions of Pan-Afro-American musicians that worked everywhere, not only in the United States, but also in Latin America. So we need, that's why we need more music therapy, more social activism, more LGBT studies, more non-oppressive practices, more indigenous people practices. And this is why, we just spent a week with the indigenous people of the Guna Indians. And, this happened because we've been working with them for 15 years. And for the first time in 15 years, we got permission to make the first book on the therapeutic singing of the Guna Indians. And this is going to be the first book, and we're going to be helping, make this happen, because the last Sila, or the last, leader who knows these songs, doesn't have a student. So we have a students, Guna students that can do this, and we're going to do it together. And it takes time, because people have been colonized enough. It's not nice to go and, now produce a book there and then go sell it. They don't want that. And if it takes us 15 years, if it takes me 15 years, and it takes Danilo 15 years to understand that we need to do it the best way possible for them, because they have been the ones that have been colonized, then we need to do it that way. That takes longer, that takes more energy, that may take even more money, but this is our salvation. You know what I'm saying? This is our salvation. This is why we have the war in Russia. This is why we have to change.
Incredible. And now, as my last question, before we exit, and this is only the beginning of your friendship with African Ascent International, I'm going to courteously ask the two of you to be part and parcel of African Ascent International as one of its pillars, as frequent guests. It's an invitation. Now, my last question is the following. I'm intrigued by this question, which came to me in the form of a gift by one of my students, Nicole Perez, one of the smartest students that I've taught at Berklee College of Music, that I have dared to ask Danilo and you to help her to become part of your program. I wish her well. She spent some time at the Amazon, and then a very curious student, she asked one of the chiefs about the Amazon and the nature of music. He told her, "The Amazon here is my orchestra." I was intrigued by that statement. The Amazon here is my orchestra. The reference, correct me if I'm wrong, is to the musicality of the trees, the river, the water, nature itself, that the musician must not only observe but listen to as the orchestra is raging. This is an observation by a very young person. So I want to share that with the two of you as a setting for your final comments before I say goodbye. And then we'll set a discussion of jazz standards for the future, along with composition. I want us to delve deeply into these two central features of music in future episodes, which we have just briefly mentioned today. So, the Amazon is my orchestra.
Well, I can relate to that thought, because when you work with indigenous people, you realize that music is part of life, as we started with the first question, why music, what is music, how we learn music, we have really disconnected music from every part of our lives possible. And this is what consumism, materialism, and capitalism does. We have, put a box, put music, the concept of music in a box, when in reality, music is life. Music is what defines us as humans. Music is multidimensional and has many, many dimensions. I would say we are, especially Danilo and I and the global, are much closer to the definition of music. I don't know, that Pythagoras had, 500 years before Christ. His biggest, most important work was called the music of the spheres, the music of, the planets, the music of the universe. And this is how, people have understood music for all of their lives. It's only recently that we have disconnected so much the concept of music from, life, from nature, from, what surrounds us. And because this is, again, has been well known forever. If you work with indigenous communities, some of them don't even have a word for music. Many of them can't even understand the concept of performing, like a performance, like, okay, now I'm going to play, and now there is a beginning and an ending of a performance, of something that you do in front of people for, for others to clap. It makes no sense for them. Those type of concepts that are so ingrained in our modern world. So yes, you can find music everywhere. We have learned from indigenous communities about the rhythm of the trees, about how trees survive in the middle of the jungle. From the Kuna musicians, from the Kuna Indians, we have heard that, it depends on the rhythm of the trees, which trees survive or not, because they have a rhythm. Actually, they move with a rhythm, and some of them move against a rhythm. And this happens also with the rivers, and this happens with the oceans, and this happens, there's language, that we call music. There's so many things. You can see music in so many dimensions, as a language connection, as a connection with the ear, with the mind, and with the mind and emotions. We've learned a little bit, but we don't know anything really about it. And this is what we need to be learning about. What is the real connection, developing these connections that we are losing, and we can see it. We can see, how the, not only the Amazon is screaming to go back to, to performing together, to playing this music together, humans and nature, but also us as humans. We're also screaming. We can't even play music together with us anymore, with musicians, with humans, let alone with nature and animals. So yes, I totally understand that reflection. It is actually very accurate.
Danilo, you will have the last word.
I was thinking about, wow, how long ago this awareness has been in our being. I think that there is a disconnection with nature, and I believe that every artist that is training or aspiring students, a human being, must find center in understanding that connection, because a lot of the ideas, musical ideas that they might be looking for there is a bird that has it. You didn't invent it, you just heard it from a call of a bird. That helps us to understand our physical interconnectedness with the natural world. The ability to listen is the source for me of human creativity, I think, and intelligence. And when you are in nature, which we have spent time, and I grew up with the sounds of the of the birds. Panama is an airport. You can really hear a lot of music if you call it music. But if you don't call it music, you can really have a lot of thoughts. The relationship you create with nature, especially listening, is powerful for human development. It's probably one of the biggest opportunities we have to enlighten the spirit and where we come from and unite us. It's an opportunity to become the potential of humanity. You will get a sensation if you allow it. This is not reserved for certain people. It's reserved for the humans to really find this level of emotions that you sometimes you just, because of the time, because of work, because of, whatever, it doesn't, you never awaken that, you never feel that. But if you go to the jungle for 3 days and practice silence, you will see the power of silence at play. And you will start to recognize a lot of things that you don't hear normally, which is an interval from an animal, a cacophony of a symphony once you get in, the dimensions of like a zone that is deforested, the sound of a zone of an area that is deforested versus the area that is primary forest. You will hear these sounds will let you know how we have damaged our relationship with nature, just from the music.
Thank you so much. And finally, this interview will be incomplete if I don't give you a forum to talk about the Panama Jazz Festival and Patricia's and Danilo's unforgettable historical role of establishing these festivals throughout the Latin world. Let's allot about 5 minutes or so to talk about the meaning of this Panama Jazz Festival, and also, and of course, Patricia's contribution to the establishment of these centers of musical therapy in Chile, in Panama, and beyond.
Well, we are actually, the Panama Jazz Festival is actually turning 20 years old in January of 2023. So we're pretty much celebrating all year. We, especially after this global pandemic, this, global chaotic 2 last years that we went through with all, the social, economic, cultural transformations. It's even more important for us to celebrate that we have lived through all of that and that we're turning 20 years old. We have one event every month. So we have about 10 different events throughout the year. We have worked in Panama, we say we work with our nails like this, because it's very difficult to make a project sustainable. What I have found, and I teach my students at Berklee, is that usually sustainable projects have to go through their first 10 years of development. In order to be sustainable, you need at least 10 years of good work, fight, and working with your nails. In Latin America, at least, in Central America particularly. And we're going on to our 20th year. So it means that, yes, we have a sustainable project. We actually, because we got sick, the festival this year, Danilo got COVID and I got very sick during the week of the festival, and we were down. The festival was 100% made, without us, which is for us a good sign, because it means that, it's sustainable. Like, we don't have to be there to make it happen. And we have over 300 volunteers. We have over 60 coordinators, and everyone has one mission: to make the Panama Jazz Festival happen. to make this into a relevant cultural event, to make this into an important educational and transformative and a place of liberation, with music, a place of liberation for youth, a place of liberation for performers, for artists, and for everyone. We have everyone participating on the festival. Most of our volunteers are not even musicians. We have from every single subject possible. We explore every dimension of music possible from 9 a.m. During the week of the festival, from 9 a.m. until 4 a.m. in the morning. We are together trying to make a better world, trying to see what do we do, how we're going to solve, how we're going to make the world, how we're going to change the world. This is what we do during the Panama Jazz Festival. And we've done it for 20 years, and we want to keep doing it forever. So January 16 to the 21st of 2023, we will be celebrating what we've been doing for the past 20 years.
Of course, this interview could last several hours, but I must end it now. And I'm going to assume that Patricia has spoken for Danilo also. They have been working as a unison. There is no dysfunctional individuality in the projects in which they prevail. It is a work of partnership, respect, love, relevance, and curiosity. This has been your host, Teodros Kiros, for African Ascent International, interviewing Patricia Perez and Danilo Pérez, top brasses at Berklee College of Music. This will be followed up, if they are available, because they are so busy, with part 2 towards the end of May. The second part will be an actual performance of the musicians at work. Thank you for staying tuned in with us.